Mandy is joining live in another 10 minutes. She actually got something to get done urgently. So she's asked for 10 minutes delay. So if you guys can wait for it, that'd be great. Sorry for the delay. Appreciate your time. Hey, Mandy. Hello.
Hi, Kishore. How are you?
No worries at all. I was just telling the folks that you have something urgent to finish up. So you'll be joining in a few minutes. Thanks for making the time to do it. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
No, of course, Mandy. Mandy, it's I had a lot of things to discuss with you. So I don't want to bore the audience folks with your background and stuff, right? But I had a lot of questions, especially for 2023, as people are sort of moving to figure out how to do more with less, and trying to understand from you, especially in terms of what you're advocating for your team, right? My
Yeah.
first question, Mandy, was a lot of companies are trying to move to enterprises now, right? Because they think that the tech startups are going to a lot of them are going to die, right? People are going to move to enterprises. So let's try to figure out an enterprise go-to-market motion. And the word ABM keeps coming up a lot, right? Like, hey, let's do ABM to figure out what enterprise looks like.
Yeah.
I would love to understand what your sense of enterprise go-to-market motion means, and how does it work in Nutanix? Would just love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I think, obviously there's a lot of chatter and a lot of opinion, right? But I have to say, for me and how I approach marketing and also enterprise is, we've been here before, right? In recent memory, if you look back at the pandemic, right, and look at what we went through, and it was oh my gosh, we're all stuck at home and we have to pivot, right? And so the world is constantly changing. Obviously the macro backdrop is something that's creating a lot of angst for us. The news headlines are not helping, right? And I'm not minimizing that. There is definitely something going on. We're all feeling it. But at the end of the day, I think, sound business strategy and sound marketing strategy prevails, right? So yes, ABM is important. Yes, enterprise is important. Should you be at a startup? I don't know. Does the startup have a real problem that it's solving? Because at the end of the day, if you go back to fundamentals, if you're in a startup today that's going to break through in this AI world that's become hot in the last 4 weeks, right? So you think about that. Is that a good startup to be at, or are you better off being at a publicly traded company, right? So there's a lot of consideration. There's always nuance. So, first thing is, don't believe everything you see or hear, right? Ground yourself in the strategy. So as it relates to Nutanix, we've been an enterprise company from day one.
For a long time.
Right? Right. In terms of what we did in hyper-converged infrastructure, we disrupted the data center, right? We have a technology. We were a startup too. We were venture-backed at one stage, right? We IPO'd very successfully. We are now making a transition, right? We went from a hardware company where we replaced 3-tier infrastructure with this amazing tech. And now we're bringing that tech forward into a software subscription model, right? So my strategy changes. My enterprise buyers are still very similar. We're still solving really hard problems for them. Right. And so as you set up your enterprise marketing strategy, you've got to think through what it means for the customer. What's your positioning of your company? How do you position yourself in the macro landscape, in the competitive landscape? Where's your sweet spot, right? All of these are fundamentals that can be broadly applied to whatever market you're going after, especially in the B2B world. So if you think about it in terms of, all right, I'm going to go after enterprise customers in segment X, right? What does that look like? How many buyer personas do I have? How many influencer personas do I have? Then, is ABM the right tactic, right? I can't go stand in front of my board and say, I'm going to fix all of our marketing challenges because I'm doing ABM, right? I'd be laughed out of the room, right? And so, it's more than the buzzwords is all I'm trying to say. So I'll pause there.
No, that makes sense, Mandy. And just to take be very tactical at it, let's say at Nutanix, you guys have an account, let's say Ford Motors, for example, you're trying to crack in, right? How does the motion work, right? Is it a combination of outbound plus marketing plus events? Is that what your typical journey looks like? Would just love to hear your thoughts on how that journey works.
Yeah, and we're evolving. That is the short answer. But
Right.
ultimately, right, Ford Motor Company is sitting in one of our enterprise account teams, account list, right? So we are account based. So as we look at that, we determine what sort of relationships we have at that account, right?
Right.
And so to understand the dynamic, we look at what plays we've got in terms of opportunities for them to either modernize, right? Because they're probably have an on-prem footprint that
For
they're
a long
looking to
time.
modernize. So I look at how my technology could help solve a challenge for them at that very strategic level. They may be looking to digitally transform, right? All of us are trying to do more with less. That's a constant theme in the business world. So how do I go at them at various personas within the account to be able to ensure that they know who we are, right? And the value we deliver, and then be able to run a motion where we circle an account, right? And be able to provide meaningful content that's personalized to them, and then be able to do some level of interaction with them, whether it be in a webinar, whether it be at a live event, invite them to a conference, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a multi-touch motion that we would run in order to bring that account to bear. And obviously the salesperson is front and center. So it's it's quarterbacking it with the salesperson to ensure that they need that level of support. They may already have Rolodex within that account. Right. And so if that's the case, marketing, let's turn off a few things and let the salespeople run with it. So that partnership becomes really important.
That makes sense, Mandy. And to that question, one thing we are actually going through right now is that we're trying to expand our verticals from technology into non-tech verticals, right? Like legal, accounting, manufacturing, and stuff. And obviously, we're discovering a few things that we didn't expect before, right? The sales cycle is longer. It's not similar to how forward-thinking technology companies think about buying a software, right? In your experience in general, have you found a lot of differences across verticals from a go-to-market perspective? For example, the similar playbook that you mentioned for Ford Motors, do you think it'll work similarly for other verticals as well, or how does your...
Yeah, generally, the last multiple years of my career where I've been working in enterprise B2B tech, generally, in terms of digital transformation, the folks that are trying to deliver that consumer-like experience to their end constituents are the verticals I've been working with, right? So financial services, public sector, healthcare, right? So if you look at those e-commerce, right, folks that have been forced to digitize because these things have changed our world, right? And so everybody, even as a B2B constituent, we all expect that app-like interface now, right? And so you look at that. So I've been working across those segments, and I will tell you there's nuance, right, in terms of their needs. There's regulatory constraints. There's all sorts of industry dynamics that you have to be really cognizant of. So you need to have specialists that understand the rhythm of those. Public sector is another one, right? It's a whole new language. They spend differently, they buy differently, right? There's a whole motion that you have to crack the code on. So you can't do it at the surface level. What you can do in terms of your company's value prop is make it relevant for that buying constituency, right? So that's where some of that pattern recognition comes in. But then in order to build cred and build business, you really got to go deep and solve their hard problems. And then, marketing can't go at it alone. Product has to come along the journey. Because ultimately, if we don't have the capability in the product, we're not going anywhere.
Exactly. And in terms of your team structure, Mandy, for that vertical marketing, do you still have a typical product marketing, field marketing for that vertical specifically, or is it a horizontal team supporting across different verticals?
So I've done it both ways in different businesses, right? I think it really depends on the maturity of your selling motion, as well as company strategy and what you're willing to fund, right? If you look at Oracle, right? They made a name for themselves in terms of their industry marketing, right? And so the investment was commensurate with how they approached, right? They went into an industry, went for gold, got the number ones, and then brought everybody else along, right? And so you can do it that way if that's your strategy and if your product set is conducive to that. So again, it's highly nuanced.
Makes sense. And in terms of this year, Mandy, are you talking at least what we hear from enterprise companies is that the CMOs and CFOs are talking a lot these days compared to how it was a couple of years back. Is that happening a lot inside your organization as well, in terms of, hey, which campaign should we go to, which events should we go to, or is it little hands off from the CFO's side of things?
Yeah, I think in order for subscription businesses and SaaS businesses to really excel, I think you need strong relationships across the C-suite, right? I invest a lot of time and energy. I've been at Nutanix now just a little over 9 months. And so what I like to do is come in and ensure we're aligned as a leadership team, right? So CEO, CRO are 2 key relationships. And then in addition to that, head of product, right? Your CPO as well as your CFO. So you've got to go build that alignment. Ultimately, right now, in terms of how we run the business, yes, there's a close interlock, right? In terms of funding models and investments, we're making some decisions as to where we move the business strategically, right? So there's a constant conversation. So you absolutely need that relationship. I've got finance business partners sitting in my staff meetings.
Wow.
Right. So they understand very closely our business and how we're running the machine and how we're building the machine. So I think it starts not only at the CFO level, but all the way through the organization. So, we're one of the biggest line items in terms of procurement and spending, right? We're investing to grow the business. So in addition to the CIO organization, right? CMOs have a lot of spending authority in the world that we live in. So having finance at the table in those conversations and understanding the strategic value of the investments, and also keeping our team honest in terms of the investments we're making and ensuring we get the ROI and ensuring that also we get the negotiation leverage that we deserve. Right. So there can be a very strong partnership there.
Yeah. On that point, Mandy, a couple of questions on the front. One is, how do you balance these discussions when your CFO comes and says, hey, look, we need to cut the tech stack by 50% or something like that, right? And then your team is scrambling to figure out, hey, which tools should I use, which tools should I not use? They might like some tool, but it might sort of affect their productivity a little bit. How do you balance those internal discussions?
So if we're having that conversation, something's gone wrong way before that conversation is my perspective, right? I have yet to be in a business where my CFOs come to me and said, you shall do this, right? Irrespective of what it is. It becomes here's our business challenge. How do we as business leaders navigate this? Mandy, what can you do, right? And so that becomes the conversation versus go cut the tech stack.
Right. That's a great point, Mandy. I think that answers my question very much. On the question, the second question I had was, if you had to think about last year and this year, right? And I'm sure your team looked at certain things in detail and say, we should not probably do this year, right? Because, obviously marketers are trying to experiment constantly and figure out what's working, what's not working. Any examples you can highlight in terms of what your team decided not to do this year compared to last year?
Yeah, I think the one that comes to mind most recently is the ability to go back in person, right? We all got good at hybrid, right? And so this year we're about to be putting on our user conference in the Americas.next, right, in early May. And so we had a deliberate conversation on, do we want to have this be in person? This is the Nutanix faithful coming to spend time with us, right? How do we want this event to be? And we did a virtual event back in the fall, right? And so we did it new style. We did it very conducive to the format of being digital versus lifting and shifting in person to digital, right? So we've done that already in the fall. And now we're coming back with an in-person touch point that does all the things that we have fondly looked back upon in terms of, wouldn't it be great if we got back together? So keynotes, leadership sessions, partner breakouts. So what we've done is taken that hybrid world and gone back into in-person and really holding that space to be sacred, to have those in-person conversations.
So your team decided to separate out digital and in-person and not combine 2 elements at the same time.
Right. Because it's really hard, right? It's really hard to do. And technology is not awesome at this yet.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And actually, on that question, Mandy, there is one question. I think, how are you looking at digital events in 2023? Right? Is that an important, especially because you guys sell into large enterprises which need that in-person events and connections, right? So how are you balancing these 2 things out from your team standpoint, digital and in person?
Yeah, great question. I think, my philosophy on digital events, they're a part of the mix, right? And so as I look at my investment envelope for the year and look at pipeline targets, we look at a very scientific way of funding that. So what's the pipe to spend allocation on elements of the mix? What's the buyer journey look like, right? So where does digital make sense and for whom?
Right.
Like, with my schedule, it's hard to get, 10 minutes on my calendar. I'm not going to sign up for an hour-long digital event.
Right.
Your C-suite typically is not going to be your
Right.
target audience.
Right.
So,
Right.
ensure that you've got the right content for the right audience. Again, fundamentals, right? And then ensure it's part of your mix. It's not the end-all and be-all.
That makes sense, Mandy. That makes a lot of sense. And there is one comment about your previous answer, for that regarding CFO cuts. I feel like everybody can relate to that particular point because I'm sure it's happening internally, right? Even within us, right? Teams are coming back and saying you should cut by 20%, and you're figuring out where should I cut. And right, so that's a fair challenge. Awesome, Mandy. That's great to know. And then in terms of I think one thing that you sort of mentioned, I remember in our prep call, was that you said it's important for marketing folks and also CMOs to be in the rhythm of the business. They should deeply understand how the business functions. And one thing I was thinking was it's very important to speak to customers for all marketers in general, right? And sometimes when the company grows so massive, the opportunities become so less, right? Like if you're working in, say, product marketing and I don't know, like customer marketing, for example, you might not speak to a lot many customers, but how do you make sure that your team speaks to as many customers as possible and sort of be in the rhythm of the business? Is there advisory board discussions that happen? What's your sort of
I think for Nutanix, we are very customer centric, right? We've built our business with that lens, right? We hold one of the highest NPS scores from a customer sat perspective, right? The latest stat I heard was Apple has an NPS of 72 or 74. Ours is 92.
Oh, interesting.
Right? And so for our business, customer is the end all and be all, right? And so across my organization, there are interlocks and touch points within the customer base. Product marketing is out at EBCs, presenting as well to new and existing customers. My customer marketing team, I raised an eyebrow when you said customer marketing does not talk to customers. That's the reason for their existence, right? So what I'm doing with my organization and my leaders in particular is for the folks that don't get the opportunity, especially when we have chances when we're in the field again with customers, be it a field event or a third-party event or our own event, I want that interlock to happen because that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, because the reason I said that is that a lot of times I've seen teams have customer marketers just manage G2 reviews or manage the case study process, do the referral for sales teams. You know what I mean? It's not deep enough. So that's why I was so curious about the question.
Right. And I think that might have been the old way of marketing, right? Where marketing was doing stuff, right? The new mode is let's be deliberate.
Right.
And really understand the why behind what we do and understand how it impacts the prospect or the customer.
Right. That's well said, Mandy. There are a few questions I want to take. One is from, I think from Michael. What's your ABM stack that you use and how do you manage the stages along the funnel between sales and marketing?
So as I've come into the org, full disclosure, we're evaluating that at the moment. And so, again, it's more than the stack to me, right? There's people, process, and technology. So I think you have to identify what's required for your business strategy and then have that define the partners that you bring in to help you move that forward. So again, I urge marketers to think a little more holistically in terms of, it's more than the brand, right? At the end of the day, what device do you use, using the device example, right? Is it a Samsung? Is it an Apple? Is it a what, right? But what's the function that you're getting out of it? Right. So that's how I think about all the tools that we bring in. They're purpose built for the business strategy to the best extent that we can.
Yeah. But I want to take this question. This is a fantastic question. I would love to pick your thoughts on this. From I would like to understand some of the most successful strategies to gain deeper account penetration with cross-selling or upselling, right? And especially what role can a marketing leader play in that to actually expand into accounts, right? And I would just like love to hear your thoughts on how you guys do it and how you've seen best companies do it as well.
Yeah. So, kind of staying on that theme, there's a lot of technology that can help, but underneath it all, you've got to have your business strategy, right? So, and how does marketing become an enabler of accelerating that business strategy, right? And doing it in an efficient way, right? That's an important element as well. So I think the successful strategies come down to, right, I've been in other SaaS businesses where we understand the flywheel. We understand a land motion. So we bring someone in on a play where they're doing some really baseline, activity within our product set, right? And then we know once they get productive on this, so how do we run that adoption play first and get them successful on what they've bought because there was a need? And then from there, where are the expansion opportunities? So again, right, there's a lot of partnership with the success teams as well as the account team to understand where in other parts of the business, if it's a large enterprise, can we get references, referrals? Where do we understand other initiatives that are happening in that company and be able to run a selling motion, but also bolster that? I refer to it under the umbrella of product enablement. So when my customers come on board, right, what's that first touch look like? What's the welcome? How do I get them into my community? How do I get them immersed in all things Nutanix? And then from there, what's the journey they're on for their specific business, right? Again, right, there's themes here in my conversations. You have to deeply understand and roll up your sleeves to do the work, to really put yourself in your customer's shoes. It's not easy. These are not horizontal things that you can run, but ultimately you do it enough times, you get pattern recognition, and then you build the scale.
Makes sense. And it's funny, you said that. I actually would love to show one of the slides I actually prepared for my internal QBR, and I would love to hear your feedback on that. So let me see if I can share that.
You're brave, Kishore.
Yes, I'm going to be very brave, but I would love to hear your thoughts on it. So can you see my screen, Mandy?
Not really.
Oh,
you need to make it a little bigger for me, please.
Oh, okay. Wait.
Let me see.
Is it, how do I...
Yep, that's pretty good. I can see that now.
You can see it now? Okay. Yep. So this is what I told my team, right? This is how marketing is going to help. Our CRO and CSM is going to introduce our core advocate, basically our champion, right? We're going to create a case study, like a success story of sorts. And then we're going to target that account with some paid campaigns saying that, hey, there is one team using our product. Here is what you can explore using the product as well. And then we probably invite them to events, right? Be it field events, be it being a panelist, right, at our events. And then after all this, there will be a lot of evangelism that has to be done where AE and CSM has to use all these assets and expand into multiple teams, because we basically, expand by different teams as we progress into an account. But this is like the rough one slide I'd put together because we are trying to test it out and see if there is any success we can find. I would love to hear your thoughts on, hey, am I missing something very crux of it? Or what's your sort of sense with the... And I'm sure you won't understand the business that much, but still would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think this is a great framework, Kishore. I think kudos to you for codifying it, right?
Okay.
Because these things can be very situational. I guess the question I would have is, how are you thinking about the SDR motion on this? Right? Are you going to outbound to folks? Right? How do you handle an inbound call? What do you say? Like, what is that? Again, going deep. What's the conversation look like in order to ensure that you're building that? And then the other thing, even within the events, depending on the size of account, and I've done this back in my, open source marketing days, or when I was really focused on businesses that were developer centric, how do you get out to the customer site and use your champion to host a lunch and learn?
Yes.
Right. And so how do you do
awesome if you nail that? Yes.
How do you do a bespoke event for obviously size has to warrant it.
Right.
But if you're in a developer business and you're looking to get developers on your platform,
right?
What better way than to go inside their walls and be able to educate within their sandboxes?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so how do you invest there knowing that you can grow lifetime value of this account?
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point, Mandy. And also, I think it gets even more complex when there are multiple products that you have to sell into, right? And you have to have different messaging.
Right. In our world, we'd land someone within 30 days in quarter, right? We'd grow them within the first 4 months, and they'd continue to pay for life, and we'd renew them all the time. right? That's how our lens as marketers and as businesses, but you got to look at the customer side, right? Does this even make sense? Is it strategic to them? Is it important? Is it an initiative? Are they philosophically aligned, right? There's a lot of art and science to what we do.
Well, makes sense, Mandy. On that point, Mandy, this question I want to take from Brittany. Do you have any career advice for someone who wants to be a CMO one day? What experiences are essential to set yourself up for success?
Great question. Something I'm really passionate about. So Brittany, I look at it in terms of, be open to education and learning, right? And if I look back at some of my defining moments in my career that got me into the CMO seat, I was pretty fearless, right? In a smart way, right? But I had a vision to get to this role. That was an aspiration. And so what I did along the way was understand the key drivers within the function of marketing, right? So understand brand, understand demand, understand the funnel. Don't shy away. Get into the product, because that's another place where marketers sometimes lose credibility if you don't understand the technology, especially, and I'm speaking from obviously a B2B lens, right? It's fundamental. Understand what drives your business, right? Where does the revenue come from? How do you fund the revenue in a way to grow in a way that makes economic sense? So think of these big picture questions, right? And really immerse yourself in that rhythm of the business, if you will. And then align yourselves not only with mentors, but with sponsors, right? Make it be known when you're doing a good job and you're looking for your next opportunity, right? Have a group of folks that are in your corner that will have your name come up in the conversations that matter, right? So you have to architect it very deliberately. Nobody's going to say, hey, Brittany, I hear you want to be CMO one day, go do this. You've got to come to the table and say, I've done this. I'm really great at product marketing. I want to go learn demand. How do you cross-train me, Mandy, to help me get there, right? And then in my mind, as I'm looking at the order, if we need headcount, I would be like, let's go inside, let's not go out, because we have somebody sitting here that's ready, willing, and able, that knows our business, right? So that's how I think about it.
No, I'll tell you an example, Mandy. So I was chatting with our head of events today. Her name is Belinda. She's fantastic. She's amazing. One thing that she was sharing was that specifically event marketers, right, don't take a step back and share their results after the event gets over. Right? Absolutely. Because they're just so busy and they're just so exhausted after the event gets over, and nobody sort of understands the effort that goes into it. And also 6 months down the line, how does it change the pipeline? Right. So I think that I could just remember that point that we discussed.
Right. And make sure you've got, and this is what a business need. Make sure you've got the frameworks in place to be able to quickly go recap. Right? Or pull the reports out of your systems, right? Out of your CRM, and do a point in time and work closely with your demand leader, right? To talk about how pipe backfills and how it flows.
Right.
There's connective tissue within marketing. Do not look at yourself as a silo.
Mandy, on that point, one tactical question I'm figuring out, like a lot of marketers don't have access to Salesforce. Actually, it's a very expensive tool, as you would know it, right? And we are trying to scramble logins, figure out what the dashboards look like. What's your suggestion to people? Because usually these dashboards are built in Salesforce with the marketing ops team, right? How can they go access those dashboards in the first place? Any thoughts on sort of?
Yeah, I think you have to agree to a set of operational KPIs and metrics you as an organization look at, right? So at my level, I'm out reporting on key indicators, right, of performance. But I think at the team level, in order to hold the team accountable, they need to know where the North Star is, right? And so that's where you have to go talk to your MOPS team as well as your marketing leadership to say, okay, I know that I'm in field marketing and I'm driving pipe, right? So how do I show my contribution into the pie that is actually pipe? Right. So the organization, if you're set up correctly, will give you that. So you don't need to go into Salesforce and custom code your own reports. Right. There should be capability within your org for you to get that. And full disclosure, we're still working on that. Right. It's hard to do. But what happens when you put it in place, everybody's speaking from the same construct. And so we're all aligned in terms of our throughput.
Exactly. Makes sense. Let me see. Let me say to Alexa, what you've talked a lot about developing the ideal customer journey across in-person and digital marketing. What is your biggest bet in 2023? I love this question. What's the, I don't know. Yeah. Any thoughts there?
I'm going to give you a cheeky response, but I think it's I think it's the conversation du jour, right? At the end of the day, all the tactics, none of it matters. When I get into the boardroom, I got to show profitable growth, right? Like that's the North Star.
Right.
And so it doesn't matter if you have the most perfect tech stack, if it's not producing in a way that's efficient, right? You're not doing what you need to. It's really, really hard. And that's why there's many of us in this discipline, right?
Right. But on that point, Mandy, are there any sort of obviously there are these new trends keep happening, right? Like the chat GPT and all that's obviously, like I said, it doesn't matter unless you produce profitable results. So your guidance is like, hey, I'm just going to go back to basics and figure it out. I'm not going to like make any big bets and like risky stuff.
No, there's big bets.
Right. Okay.
There's big bets underneath it. Obviously, I'm not I can't share, right? Some of the inner workings here. But ultimately, right, you've got to have that conversation with your C-suite and your key stakeholders, your head of product, your head of revenue. What's coming in terms of our enhancements that we're doing or new launches? What is the market dynamic? What are we understanding the demand motion to be in the market? And how do we capitalize on it, right? And how do we focus the org? Because ultimately it's a conveyor belt, right? We market what product builds and then sales sells what we market, right? It is how it should work, right? And so if you spend the energy and effort there, and then the big bets come from the macro, they come from where your strengths are, where you see opportunity strategically on the initiatives that you're selling against within your prospect and customer base, your competitive advantage. Then it's the marketing machine that's flowing all of that into market. How do you ensure you're top of mind for the folks that matter, right? We're in the process of relaunching ourselves from a branding perspective. You're going to see a new Nutanix emerge here in April. So there's definitely big bets, right? I can tease that out for you. Watch this space, right? There's some real excitement coming. And as far as us re-emerging on the scene to be a force to be reckoned with, right. So there's a whole big bet strategy around it, but ultimately it's the right time for us, we believe, in the market. Right. So marketing can't go at it alone.
Right. No, makes sense, Mandy. Mandy, so there is a lot of questions coming up. So I'm just going to take one by one. If you have time, let's try to answer them. So from Elizabeth, I don't know if you can, let me see. What's the biggest challenge CMOs are facing in 2023 and beyond?
I think the biggest challenge and what keeps me up at night is how do I, as a leader, ensure that my team is motivated to deliver on the challenge that we've got and the mission we're on, right? Without the team, I'm nothing, right? And so how do I keep the team focused and have them deeply understand and commit to the strategy that we're embarking upon? Right. And then also the uncertainty. We're navigating this tremendous uncertainty. It keeps coming in waves. And we are probably, from a macro perspective, more uncertain than ever. So how do you deal with customers who may be, delaying spending or maybe accelerating spending? How do you deal with this uncharted territory, which again is a constant, but this time around the volume's turned up a little higher than I'd like. Right. And those are things beyond my control. So that's why the guidance to go back to fundamentals. Right. Because at the end of the day, those will not let you down.
Right. Makes sense. From Elizabeth, let me change this layout a little bit. You mentioned you have finance business partners you closely work with. Is there anything you can share regarding ways you approach marketing and finance alignment and partnership?
Yeah, I think right. And having the right personalities within finance that come work with marketing is point one. Right. And I think investing the time and educating them around your strategy, right. And how you're going to do and execute against your remit for the organization, because then they become an advocate for you again in rooms when you're not there. Right. The finance business partner will go, marketing is doing this because of XYZ,
Right.
right? So they don't have to know every single nuance of marketing, but obviously they're a business partner. And so you have to do your job as a good business partner to understand them. And they also have to do their side of the equation to help us understand why we need to get to quarter close, why timelines, deadlines matter, how we flow, dollars, right? Can we roll over dollars? Can we not? Right. So all the nuances to make us successful. How do you get things through procurement? How do you onboard new vendors? The list is endless of things, right? But if you've got that understanding and that shared mindset in terms of driving the business in a productive way, I think you do yourselves a lot of favors. So invest in that relationship. It's incredibly important.
But on that point, from your experience, or even at Nutanix right now, what do they mostly care about in meetings, right? Because I'm like, it's not easy to actually sort of explain them like, hey, here is what this campaign will result in from a pipeline. Like, you know what I mean? You can have a high level understanding of things. Are they more interested to understand like CAC, right? Like, how does that, like, what are the things that marketers should make sure that they explain to finance teams in a comprehensive manner that they understand well?
I think, I'm not in every one of those conversations, but I can tell you what's happening at my level. It's really ensuring that we're coming in on budget, right? And we're using the dollars to drive the appropriate outcome, right? And so I think what you have to do is kind of take a step back and go, okay, if I'm in a campaign function, right? Here are the results that we're putting up. Here are the metrics that we've all agreed to, be it pipe to spend, right? And again, understand kind of the curves around these things, seasonality. So be familiar in your metrics, right? So I've launched this campaign, early returns say I'm getting X traffic to the website, right? Here's how the ads are performing, pay per click, or here's our conversion rate. So really become an expert in all of the things that are moving the needle that are your early indicators, right? If it's new, right? And then you're able to go and continually report back on a regular cadence as to how we're progressing on that investment, right? So I think it's, again, be in charge of your own destiny. Come to your conclusions before they're made for you.
Makes sense. Let's see.
The last thing I'll add there, Kishore, is not everything is positive, right? Sometimes things bomb. Right. And it could be because it was the wrong message, wrong audience, whatever. There's a whole litany. We didn't get the product out in time, whatever it might be. Be courageous enough to talk about the why there, because that's where the learning happens.
Yeah. And also that's a big challenge, Mandy, because, I feel like, especially now with everything going on, like it's tough to be super transparent with what's happening. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, you can wake up to a news next day saying that you're being laid off, right? It's a tough.
Right. But again, you've got to separate your personal performance from what the business dynamic was, right? Like, we invested here, here's what we learned, but we did it as a pilot, and now we're able to now go and build a more refined model because we learned this up front versus wasting a ton of money, right? We were able to run an experiment. So that's the other thing. In these types of environments, experimentation is very important. Smart experimentation.
Exactly. This question from Mikhail: how do you navigate the gap between the work plans with the actual changes and course correction that you need to do on a yearly basis? I mean, I think that's part of the regular day-to-day life. I'm assuming there is no going back from it.
Right. I think North Stars should not change too often, right? It's like a company vision, right? And so if you've got a North Star, you're progressing towards it. So there will be a gap. Like, none of us are perfect, right? No business, no marketing organization is going to continually be able to hit those targets. So it becomes a conversation around, here's the stretch goal, right, to hit the North Star, and here's what we're okay with. And so it's navigating that in a way to absorb the learning and be able to get better every day. So that's my mindset, right? It's incremental daily improvement in terms of how we run this thing. There's no golden ticket. If there were, none of us would have jobs.
Right.
Oops.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kishore, I think my camera died. I don't know if that's okay or not.
No, I can see you. I can see you actually. You're good.
Oh, okay.
I can't see.
Okay,
Yeah, I can see you now. Yeah. This question, Mandy, from Miriam, actually, is it effective to add some humor to B2B marketing? It's funny, and I'll tell you why I've thought about it, but also we are a digital events platform, right? So I've always wondered, I don't want to be too humorous because people won't take us seriously. Because if an event goes down, it's a big sort of embarrassment for the brand, also for the company. I've thought about it a lot, and I've not sort of had the courage to be a lot more humorous in the marketing campaigns. But I would just love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it depends on what your brand is.
Correct.
Right. And so ultimately, what's your tone of voice, right? What have you set out as your brand values, right? What's your culture, right? You look at Nick Mehta from Gateshead, right? He's wild and it's awesome, right? That's his brand, and he's revered for it, and it's a wonderful place to work, right? So it can work, but again, it can't be a one-off. You have to provide consistency. So if that's your brand platform, go for it.
Right. If there is one thing I learned from business school, and I truly believe in it, is that you have to be authentic after a point of time. Like if you stay away from that, people will figure out. They'll know when you're trying to deviate from that core.
Yeah. I read an HBR headline today. I haven't read the article yet. And they show that leaders who are authentic are 3 times more successful than their peers, right? So if that's not giving you a promise, right, and giving you freedom to be yourself, I don't know what is.
Right. Awesome. And then last question from me before I let you go is that this comment you made earlier regarding C-level not having time to attend hour-long digital events. Do you think there is value in creating awareness among these execs for the larger time commitment events? Do you think does it help awareness at a higher level?
I'm not sure I totally understand the question. So I think what I'm hearing is, and I'll give you the perfect example, right? I may not attend the hour-long event, but if it's a topic that's of interest to me, right, I'm going to sign up and I'm going to get the recording. So knowing full well that I will not spend the 60 minutes, I want to be able to get the synthesis, right? So I think how marketers could help, and this is just Mandy brainstorming, right? Call it free advice. I think what I'd love to see is, hey, Mandy, you weren't able to make this webinar. Here's what we discussed. And if you look at minute 32, there's something here that might be valuable for you, right? Or here's the summary. So net it out for me, please. Or make sure one of my lieutenants is there that's going deep on solving the problem and they are fully immersed, right? So there's multiple ways. And not having the time is not an excuse. If there's a need or I'm evaluating something or would like to learn about a new strategy, I'm willing to do it. It's just sometimes constraints in my calendar won't allow it.
And the reason why I think the question came up is that a lot of companies, I think, Mandy, and we have done the same mistake. We try to target the highest person in power because we think they own the budget, right? But at the end of the day, the champions have to advocate for you and support you.
Right. And if you can stop the LinkedIn ads that I get or the solicitations on Mandy, can we get you more tchotchkes? I'm not going to respond to that. I'm sorry. Right. There's plenty of people on my team that will, and I mean that in the best possible way. So make sure your message fits your audience. Right. Like at the end of the day, I can't. I don't have the bandwidth to answer all of these things or all the inbound I get into my inbox. Right. Sorry, I don't have $3,000 to pay for a cover story. That to me is not what I'm doing. Right. And so, let's be respectful and honor the people that you're targeting, because if you just blast them, they turn you off completely. So that's the risk you run.
Right. Awesome. Mandy, this has been amazing. I know you have to run. If there is one CMO that you think we should have on the show, who would that be? From your network, from your friend circle, from people you admire?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. There's so many. I think, anybody that's running a subscription business that's growing.
That's a very politically right answer. You didn't give any names.
Right. I can't, because there's a whole group of them that, I've got faces flashing through my brain. I'm happy to give you a list offline for your prospecting. But there's so many the beauty of CMOs is the experience is varied and all relevant.
Yeah. And to your credit, Mandy, whenever I reach out to a CMO, they've always been appreciative of offering help, giving their time. So I think they appreciate how tough the role is. So I think wise words spoken. But Mandy, really appreciate you taking some time today. I think it's been a fruitful discussion. I couldn't cover half the questions I had in mind. It seems like the audience folks had a lot of questions. So, but it's okay. At the end of the day, it's for the community. So appreciate you taking some time today, and good luck with your sort of quarterly results as well as coming up.
Thank you, and thank you, Kishore, for the opportunity. It's been a great conversation. Really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thanks, Mandy. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Take care.